for us, and we'll get started right after that.
Great God, I thank you for the great mercy, the grace that you've given to us each day. I thank you for safety that you've allowed everyone to be here tonight. God, I thank you for allowing us to know a little bit more about your word each day. It just gives us a little more light, a larger heart for you. I thank you for what you did through Daniel's life so that we can be excited about what you can do through us and be instruments of your gospel, of Jesus Christ. I pray tonight that we would soak all these things in, not just for ourselves, that we may give them out to people and tell others about this great God that we serve. I thank you for our teacher, for Joel, and I pray that you be with him. Fill him with your Holy Spirit, that he may lead this class. Thank you in the name of Jesus Christ, we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you all for coming back tonight, giving up your evening here, and looking forward to being able to spend the time together as we go. Let me just show you real quick before we get into everything. I did put up some of the information that we talked about last night. Somebody asked for the PDF version of the main document. That's up there. I will try to update this as this document continues to change. And the other thing is someone asked for the introductory lectures document, where we talked about prophecy, why prophecy, a little bit about the liberal theory and so forth. That document's up there as well. Okay? So, and if you want anything else, just let me know. I mean, even if somebody said, I'd like this triple space, it's going to take me probably a minute and a half. So, really happy to do that kind of thing. Don't feel at all embarrassed to ask for any of these resources, or if there's something I can do that'll make it more helpful. So, good. Anything that came to mind like that? All right. I'm sorry. Okay. Great. Well then, here's where we're at. Last night we talked about chapter 1. We talked about these refugees, young guys. They're dropped off in Babylon, and they take their stand. We, I hope, helped to explain a little bit more about why this was an issue for them. Talking about the Old Testament dietary code and why that mattered. That this was not just them saying, I need to eat more vegetables or something. And so the significance of all that. And then where we ended last night is, just a really beautiful, hopeful thing. And working through some of this today with the pastors earlier. This idea of Daniel remained until the first year of Cyrus the king. Just a little hint there. Okay, Cyrus, he's going to be the one that brings God's people back to the promised land. Daniel was there, just so you know. Daniel was there. Okay, and we'll talk more about that when we get a little further on, talking more about Cyrus. So that was chapter 1. And if you have questions about that, happy to field any of those questions. But tonight, my goal is to talk through chapter 2 through 4. And that's basically the pattern. I mean, each night I'm going to try to cover 3 chapters. We've got 3 hours. Let's hit 3 chapters. Yes?
I have a question about the rulers that would have ruled at that time. What's the length of time that, say, Nebuchadnezzar and any of these rulers would have reigned at one given time?
Yeah, good question. Nebuchadnezzar reigned, I'm going to have to guess to get the number right, but I'm going to say, I think 43 years. It might have been 45. But it was mid-40s. Nebuchadnezzar reigned, the whole I think it is 43. The whole Babylonian Empire lasted for like 86. Okay, so he reigned for about half of the entire Babylonian Empire. The next guy after him reigned just a couple of years. I think the guy after him reigned a couple of months. So the way this worked, it's obviously very different than our society. It's not like they had a term in office or something. They were in there for as long as they could manage to hold on to power and keep from getting killed. Okay, that's pretty much the way it went. Yeah.
I heard something thrown out somewhere too that there was like I don't know if it's a theory or a fact, but that the first year of a Babylonian king, it wasn't counted in their reign. So it kind of, if we ourselves tried to do our calculations, it might throw us off with things. Is that true?
It comes up in Miller. It's in your commentary.
Yeah.
And I mentioned it in the notes here. Actually, it's I think the first note of chapter 2. Because it relates to something we'll talk about in a second. Yeah, you know what? Who knows? Okay, we just don't know. I mean, it's possible, and I mentioned that in here because it's a possibility that maybe that's true. And but I mean, when we're talking about stuff that's, in this case, 2,500 years ago, some of those details like that we're not entirely sure. We don't have those kinds of records. Yeah. They forgot to save their emails, I mean, I think that though sometimes it's like, will all the information from today, are they just going to have this crazy, vast amount of information from all our tweets and Facebook posts and emails, or that kind of thing. Where in the past a lot of that got burned or deleted or rotted in the ground. So who knows? Anyway, so good question though. Anybody else from chapter 1? All right, so here's the note you were just referring to. In the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, this is the issue here. Okay, up here, I'll point this out. Up in the beginning of chapter 1, we already read this. In the third year of Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up to Jerusalem and besieged it. Okay, so this is when Nebuchadnezzar conquers Jerusalem. Then he's going to put these men in training for 3 years, right? Okay, so then when you get down here, chapter 2, and it says this is the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, you say all these guys are still in training when you put all that together. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Because he was already the king in chapter 1. They've got to be in training already. Well, that's possible. We're just not sure. Because you get down here, and the second year of Nebuchadnezzar may have been before the end of the 3-year training period, maybe, and Leon Wood goes that way. So if that's true, it could explain why, we'll see in just a second, why Daniel and his friends didn't get informed of this news. But on the other hand, one commentator, Driver, suggests that the Babylonians, like you said, didn't count the first year of the reign because it was the accession year. One other fact you got to know, back in chapter 1, it talks about Nebuchadnezzar, and yet he was co-regent at that point. In other words, his dad was still alive. His dad was weak and failing, so Nebuchadnezzar went ahead and picked up the reign, but his dad was still king in title. Okay, so it didn't transfer till the dad died, and yet Nebuchadnezzar, for all intents and practical purposes, was functioning as king. So they'll call it co-regent, meaning both guys get called king, but typically in the way that it got counted, the first, second, third year of the king, it hadn't started counting yet till the dad died. Okay, so when you put that into it, and just when you work through all the details here, it is actually possible that they had just barely finished their training. Okay, upshot. Let me put that in terms that make sense, that just are actually applicable and practical to us here in understanding the passage. These guys are either sophomores or they just graduated. They're either in their second year out of 3, or they just graduated from college, if you want to put it in those terms. Okay, but either way, they're just fresh and green as grass, right? I mean, they've really not gotten started into their career, if you want to say it that way. Here's an idea. We're just going to do this for the fun of it. We're going to read chapter 2 out loud, and to do that, let's come up with a different parts for each character. Okay, so what I'm going to need here is a narrator. I'm going to need the king. I'm going to need the Chaldeans. And a little bit later, let's see, there's one other character down here. Oh, it's the executioner. We need the Arioch, the leader of the King's Guard. He speaks one line, because that's a great one. It's a one-line part. And then we need Daniel. Okay, so volunteers. Somebody want to take the narrator part? It's the biggest, just so you know. Actually, we could split it in half. You want to take it? Okay. You take the narrator's part. Somebody want to take the king's part? It's not very big.
I'll take it.
All right, Adam's the king. Who wants to take Daniel? Okay, that one, I'll admit, is kind of big. Anybody? All right, you're on, Daniel. And then we need Arioch, the leader of the King's Guard, and it's
Something's burning.
Yeah, I smell it back here too.
Like plastic? Yeah. Look in the coffee thing.
You're the teapot?
Oh, it's closed. It has to be open? No, it shouldn't.
It's not back here. Smell it, Adam?
Too, yeah.
Smell a little bit, yeah.
I don't know.
It's on my shoes I start taking
I don't know. Maybe it's outside the room?
Well,
Yeah.
Seems like it's gone now.
Stop thinking.
Stop thinking.
Interesting. Well, if something catches fire, we'll know.
just keep your eyes open.
Yeah. Okay, so what part do we need? We still need Daniel.
No, we have Daniel.
We have Daniel. We need Arioch, the King's Guard. Short part. It's one line. I mean, it's the easiest thing in the world. Okay, and we need the Chaldeans.
Maybe 2-3 lines.
Yeah, it's like 2 verses. Okay. So, let's start out chapter 1, verse 1, and go ahead and read it loud enough.
Chapter 1, verse 1.
Oh, I'm sorry, chapter 2, verse 1. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And yeah, just read it out loud enough that everybody can hear, of course. And we'll just, I mean, we're basically like going to see a play here. Okay, everybody's going to tell their part, and we're going to see the characters. We're going to see this play unfold right in front of our eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay. Now in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his spirit was so touched that his sleep left him. Then the king gave the command to call the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerer, the Chaldeans, to tell the kings his dreams. So they came and stood before the king, and the king said to them,
I have a dream, and my spirit was anxious to know the dream.
Then the Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic.
O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will give you the interpretation.
The king answered and said to the Chaldeans,
My decision is firm. If you do not make known the dream to me and its interpretation, you shall be cut to pieces, and your houses shall be made an ash heap. However, if you tell the dream and its interpretation, you shall receive from me gifts, rewards, and great honor. Therefore tell me the dream and its interpretation.
They answered again and said,
Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will give it the interpretation.
Then the king answered and said,
I know for certain that you would gain time, because you see that my decision is firm. If you don't make known the dream to me, there's only one decree for you. For you have agreed to speak lying and corrupt words before me till the time is changed. Therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know that you can give me the interpretation.
The Chaldeans answered the king and said,
There is not a man on earth who can tell a king's matter. Therefore no king, lord, or ruler has ever asked such thing of any magician, astrologer, or Chaldean. It is a difficult thing that the king requests, and there is no other who can tell it to the king, except the gods whose dwelling is not in the flesh.
For this reason the king was angry and very furious, and gave the command to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. So the decree went out, and they began killing the wise men, and they sought Daniel and his companions to kill them. Then, with counsel and wisdom, Daniel answered Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, who had gone out to kill the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain,
Why is the decree from the king so urgent?
Then Arioch made the decision known to Daniel. So Daniel went in and asked the king to give him time, that he might tell the king the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house and made the decision known to Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, and his companions, that they might seek mercies from the God of heaven concerning this secret, so that Daniel and his companions might not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then the secret was revealed to Daniel in a night vision. So Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said,
Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. He changes the times and the seasons. He moves kings and raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. Oh, I thank you and praise you, O God of my fathers. You have given me wisdom and might, and have now made known to me what we asked of you. For you have made known to us the king's demand.
Therefore Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus to him,
Do not destroy the wise men of Babylon. Take me before the king, and I will tell the king the interpretation.
Then Arioch quickly brought Daniel before the king, and said thus to him,
I have found a man of the captives of Judah who will make known to the king the interpretation.
The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belshazzar,
Are you able to make known the dream which I have seen and its interpretation?
Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said,
The secret which the king has demanded, the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, and the soothsayers cannot declare to the king. But there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets, and he has made known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what will be in the latter days. Your dream and the visions of your head upon your bed were these. As for you, O king, thoughts came to your mind while on your bed, about what would come to pass after this, and he who reveals secrets has made known to you what will be. But as for me, this secret has not been revealed to me, because I have more wisdom than anyone living, but for our sakes, who make known the interpretation to the king, and that you may know the thoughts of your heart. You, O king, were watching, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose splendor was excellent, stood before you, and its form was awesome. This image's head was of fine gold, and its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. You watched while a stone was cut out without hands, which struck the image on its feet of iron and clay, broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were crushed together and became like chaff from the summer threshing floors. The wind carried them away so that no trace of them was found, and the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This is the dream. Now we will tell the interpretation of it before the king. You, O king, are a king of kings, for the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field, and the birds of the heaven, he has given them into your hand, and he has made you ruler over them all. You are this head of gold. But after you shall arise another kingdom, inferior to yours. Then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything. And like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others. Whereas you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. Yet the strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay. And as the toes of the feet were, partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom will be partly strong and partly fragile. As you saw iron mixed with the ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. And in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Inasmuch as you saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God has made known to the king what will come to pass after this. The dream is certain, and its interpretation is sure.
Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face, prostrate before Daniel, and commanded that they should present an offering and incense to him. The king answered Daniel and said,
Surely your God is the God of gods, the Lord of kings, and the revealer of secrets, since you could reveal this secret.
Then the king promoted Daniel and gave him many great gifts, and he made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon and chief administrator over all the wise men of Babylon. And also Daniel petitioned the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. But Daniel sat in the gate of the king. Nebuchadnezzar the king made...
Oh, that's great.
Sorry,
End of the chapter. Excellent. Very good.
We just want to hear what's happening.
Part of what I wanted to do with that is just, give it a try. I mean, I mentioned that as an idea yesterday. I wanted to give it a try so you guys kind of see how that is. And this can be a lot of fun to do with a lot of passages. That's great stuff.
He said, okay.
So, I've already mentioned right here at the beginning, the chronology. When did this happen? And the possibility that these men are young men. And just as a reminder then, what I'm saying is that these men, they're probably 18, maybe at the most 19 or 20. Okay, but these are guys that are still quite young. All right, the king calls, and he's worried about his dream. He calls the magicians, conjurers, sorcerers, and Chaldeans. I just want you to notice that, okay? There's 4 different labels there. Magicians, conjurers, sorcerers, Chaldeans. Just kind of make a note of that. He calls them all to come and declare to the king his dream. So they all show up. I dreamed a dream. My spirit is disturbed to know the dream. O king, live forever. Tell us the dream. We'll declare the interpretation. They actually they found this stuff. They found guidebooks for Babylonians. And in these guidebooks, it's kind of like, the ancient equivalent of a horoscope or something. There are books that'll say, if a guy has a dream and you see this symbol in it, then that means this. And if you see this symbol in it, that means this. Okay? And so here's the guidebook for a dream reader, interpreter guy. Just listen to the dream and then go through and see what symbols he has, and you can tell him what all those things are. Actually, Pastor Bud, in the earlier class today, he said that when he was in high school, unsaved, he did a project for psychology class, and what he ended up doing, he did research into dream analysis, and Jungian and Freudian psychology has guidebooks for dreams, even today, And they'll say, if a guy dreams this, it means this, and this, and this. And the goofy thing is, he had a dream, so he said, well, I'll give this a try. So he goes to the library, and he gets both the books out, and they disagree. Told him totally different things. It means this. No, it means this. Okay, and that's the problem with stuff like this. So they want to know the dream, and then they'll go ahead and give them the interpretation. All right? People still do this, don't they? Horoscopes, palm readers. It's just a human thing. It's just weird. Okay, and that's just the tendency that is in human hearts, unfortunately. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the declaration from me is firm. If you do not make known to me both the dream and the interpretation, then, this is an interesting expression here, torn limb from limb, literally, if you translate literally, it's you'll be made into limbs. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take you and we're going to process that so that when it's all done, all that's left is a pile of limbs. Okay, you will be turned into limbs, is the literal expression of it. Not exactly nice. And your houses will be turned into dunghills. The idea is probably your house will be turned into a public latrine. Okay, and so everybody's going to use your house as a bathroom, and that's what it's going to be known as from now on. Okay, so yeah, okay, you don't want this, but if you'll declare the dream and its interpretation, you will receive gifts and a reward and great honor from me. So, therefore, declare the dream and its interpretation. Okay, have I made this clear enough? I really want you to do this. I always kind of wondered, right? So was he hung up this day? Of course, the real possibility is that he'd forgotten the dream, like a lot of us do. You know, you have a dream, you're like, wow, that was a great dream, or that was interesting, that was wild, that was scary. 5 minutes later, you can't remember it. So maybe that was what was going on. I'm going to actually suggest a possibility. I can't prove it, but I think it's very possible that maybe in some sense Nebuchadnezzar was testing these guys. Okay, he's had them on the court payroll. Somebody pointed out in the pastor's class earlier today. I thought it was a great point. Since this is only his second year, it's very possible these guys may just be kind of stuck on the court payroll from the last guy. Okay, and he's reached a point now. He's got to be thinking: are these guys legit, or are they just saying stuff? Okay, I came across an article online, and Salem, Massachusetts, in the States, is kind of a hub for a lot of just messed up stuff, sorcery and demonism, and then there's a lot of these fortune readers. Okay, well, in Salem, you have to have a license to be able to tell fortunes within the city, and there's only a limited number of licenses. So if you happen to be one of the people that has a license, then you like that because you kind of have a somewhat monopoly. You have more value. And if you don't have a license, you don't like that. So there was this political debate going on where the non-licensed people were going to the city council and they were trying to convince the city council to let them have more licenses so that more people can set up businesses within Salem. So, a little political battle over who gets to practice magic in the city. And the irony of it was things got real nasty. So one of the days, the women who actually had the licenses, the license owners, they come out to their car and their mirrors have been broken and there's profanities scratched into the paint on the side of their car, and they're just saying, we're so upset, we don't know who did this, and all this kind of thing. And my thought was, if you really have access to paranormal information, why'd you park your car there? Right? Why didn't you walk? Why didn't you know who it is and go sue them? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, politicians should test everyone.
They should
and grant
test
them
them.
the licensing from that.
See if they can.
That's what I thought they were going to try to do, and then be like, all right, go away.
They come home or to their business one day and their windows are smashed and there's these satanic ritual things all over their business, and same deal. We're so upset. Well, if you're so smart, you should have just known, right? And that's kind of the feel of what's going on here. It's like, okay, you claim to have paranormal information that you can interpret my dream and tell me what it means. I got one for you. Tell me the dream. And I'm going to suggest that maybe Nebuchadnezzar actually remembers the dream. The reason I say that is Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams and his spirit was disturbed and his sleep was gone from him. I'm going to say that if he forgot it 5 minutes later, he'd just go back to sleep, right? And I'm going to say then that if he's so upset about this, and this is such a big deal, that he probably knows it and he's just holding it from them, okay? Down here, same idea. He says, therefore, tell me the dream, and then I will know that you can declare to me the interpretation. In other words, once I see you produce the dream, that'll verify for me that you're legit and not just making stuff up, okay? Let me take this down one more layer. there's a real possibility as you think about the dream. We just read it. Okay, it's a dream with this image, and it's majestic and all that stuff. Nebuchadnezzar's pretty reasonable for him to think, I wonder if that represents me or my kingdom or something like that. And then this rock rolls out and crushes the dream and destroys it, and this rock fills the whole earth. Okay? So is there a possibility that the reason Nebuchadnezzar is so troubled is in his dream is he's thinking, I wonder if my kingdom's going to topple. I wonder if somebody's coming after me. Okay? And you just read a little bit about world history. Basically, every dictator is like that. In fact, we have indications that Nebuchadnezzar himself was like that. That he's always insecure about maybe somebody's got a coup going on. By the way, if anybody was going to plant a coup in his kingdom, it would be these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Because these guys are the aristocracy, the upper crust. Chaldeans is a word for an ethnicity. It's a group of people. And they also happen to be a group of people that were, in various ways, able to establish themselves as really influential in the kingdom. They're like the inner circle, a lot of power accumulated in the Chaldeans. So, think of it this way. Nebuchadnezzar has a dream. He suspects that maybe the dream is a sign that something's going on, something's up. He gets up the next morning and he thinks, I'd like an interpretation of the dream. And then the question is, wait, if I call these guys to come interpret the dream, they may be exactly the guys who are trying to overthrow me. So what do? I call them and I say, tell me the dream, guys. Tell me the dream and its interpretation, and then I'll know. If they're willing to tell me and give me the interpretation, maybe that's an indication that nothing's really up, right? But if they're really afraid to tell me what the dream is, then maybe it's an indication either they're total fakes, in which case, why should I be paying them? Or the other possibility is maybe there's something up and they don't want to tell me, okay? And that would explain a little bit why, when they wouldn't tell him the dream, he's saying, off with your heads, right? You're all dead. All of you. I'm going to kill all the wise men of my entire kingdom. In fact, there's one other place where Darius the First, which is, of course, another empire, but one of the ancient historians record that Darius killed a whole bunch of his wise men. You know why? Because a whole bunch of his wise men, just like this, a whole bunch of his wise men were conspiring together in a coup to try to overthrow his power. So he just killed them all. Okay? It's a different king, but the same exact kind of story went on. So can I prove that? Of course I can. Okay? But it does seem sensible, and it does seem to maybe fill out what's going on in the story.
Doesn't King Pharaoh do this as well?
What are you thinking of?
I have Joseph.
Yeah, I'm not thinking. I mean, he does, are you talking about ask him of a dream and give me the interpretation? Yeah, there's some parallel, definite. Somebody brought that out in the fast class. That King Pharaoh asked this, Joseph revealed it, and then he exalted Joseph. So there's some parallelism there.
It's interesting to me. Like, we don't obviously live in a time of dreams, but
yeah,
how would you know that this had any significance? When I wake up in the morning and I have a dream, I'm like, cool dream, and I go on my day. I don't think that has any significance of future events.
Yep.
I don't know why at these times, I wonder why they would, maybe they're more vivid dreams. Maybe they're just...
Maybe God put it into their hearts.
Right. I mean, in this case,
Like
there's no question that God did.
In this, that
Yep.
he somehow troubled
Yep.
Nebuchadnezzar, and either he, maybe caused him to not remember the dream, and then Nebuchadnezzar assumed that they would be able to tell him the dream because of their powers, and and then also like God kind of used it in order to bring Daniel to the forefront, to his notice, sort of the same as how Joseph was brought to the Pharaoh's notice.
Yep.
That is an ancient type thinking, though, right? They took a lot of emphasis out of dreams, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, even
I was going to say here, when in respect to Adam's comment, I mean, part of the reason that you wake up and you go, that was weird. Okay, what do I got going on today? Some of that's just because you live in 2013. I mean, you're a post-enlightenment thinker. We all are. Okay, it's just the way we think. But we are the exception in human history, and I'm not saying that we're wrong. I totally agree that dreams is like, okay, whatever, let's move on with my day. But most of human history, people put a lot of stock in dreams. In fact, having spent time in Zambia, there's still, I'd say maybe the majority of humans today still put a lot of stock in dreams. Because you get a dream and it's kind of like, oh, what's this about? Does this mean something or not? And I've sat and talked to people as they've related. I had this dream and I'm wondering if that's from God or not. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. But I'd say we're the exception, not the rule. We're the weird ones here. Yeah. Okay, but definitely to Miss Judy's point a second ago here, this dream definitely came from God. This one was different. Okay, so I'm sure a lot of times the Babylonians got all worked up about a dream that meant nothing. This time it meant something. They come the second time, verse 7. They answered a second time, and they said, "Let the king tell to his dreams, the servants the dream, and we'll declare the interpretation." Okay, you got it. You got to get the irony here. Okay, tell us the dream, we'll declare the interpretation. No, you have to tell me the dream and the interpretation. Okay, I want the dream first, then give me the interpretation. Period. The declaration, Nebuchadnezzar says, the declaration from me is firm. What you going to say to that? Tell us the dream and we'll tell you the interpretation? And sort of the feel of like, maybe he forgot, you know? Maybe he'll forget what he said and he'll tell us the dream this time. And the king's not stupid. The king answered and said, "I know with certainty that you're trying to gain time. You're stalling. You're stalling because you see that the matter for me is firm. If you do not make known to me the dream, there's only one law for you. So you conspired with a lying answer and corrupt to say this before me until the times change. You're hoping I'll just forget. Therefore, tell me the dream, and I will know that you can declare to me the interpretation." The Chaldeans answered. Very important answer to get this, okay? They answered and they said, "There's not a man on the earth. Nobody can do this. There is no king, great man, or ruler who asks this type of thing of any magician, conjurer, or Chaldean." Okay, the problem with you is with you, king. This is crazy. Okay, you got us on the payroll and you're paying us to do some magic stuff and stuff like that for you. But this is going too far. Okay, we can't do this. This does feel a little bit like, you mentioned Pharaoh a second ago. This does feel a little bit like Pharaoh's magicians. Moses does certain signs, and then it comes to a certain point, and the magicians go, "Yep, that one's beyond us." Right? The other stuff, we got that. We know how to do. Don't know how. Never learned that trick. And so the matter which the king is asking is difficult. There is none other who can declare it before the king. Okay, get this phrase. Except the gods. Except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh. All right? Their idea is no magician or conjurer or human can possibly tell you this dream like this. Nobody can fit your demands. The gods are the only ones who have it, and the gods don't talk to us. We don't have contact with the gods. Right? The gods do their own thing. They don't give us any kind of revelation. And so therefore, we can't answer this dream. Okay? That might be the only thing that the Chaldeans got right. Part of it. Part of it is true. That only the gods, or we'll say, as believers, only the God, the true God, knows this kind of information. The second part they got wrong, because our God does dwell with people. And we're going to see that in just a second.